All 12 of us? We got a couple of things working against us. I just had a phone call, actually a couple phone calls from people that misunderstood and thought that we were going to have everything out of Deer Lake. This is my encouragement to read. Read the details. That's okay, though. The other thing is I said that we were going to start at 10:10, so we'll probably triple in size by the time we really get going. Today's going to be different than other days, right? Like I had said in the announcements. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to go straight into a sermon right after we finish announcements, and then we're going to head out to Deer Lake. So Deer Lake is about 35, 40 minutes east of here. Most of you know where that is. If you don't know where that is, let me know. But we're going to head that way, and we're going to have kind of a church picnic and some playtime. Scott Huber's bringing his boat for those that want to water ski or tube or anything like that. So we'll have some playtime and some feasting out there. We'll have burgers, hot dogs, brats, all that stuff out there. So come talk to me afterwards if you don't know how to get there. We'll all get there. 28th through the 30th, so starting tomorrow, we get the Quiet and Campfire Retreat. Contact Jonathan. I still have that if you're interested, because some people I know can't do like 3 days in a row. But even if you can get out there for an afternoon, we're trying to create a space, design a space where you can meet with God. Because we all acknowledge that you could be here at as many sermons as you want to, but unless you actually slow down and hear his voice, it doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter, but really, that's the thing that's going to transform you. That's going to be the thing that shifts you is when you actually hear his voice. Good morning. All right, so we've got that coming 28th through the 30th. You can camp out there. We'll have some food out there. If you need tents, sleeping bags, anything like that, we've got some. I loaded up his truck with a bunch extra, so he'll bring stuff out there if you don't even have it. That's fine. UP City Fest, August 1st, is going to be a teen night. And then August 2nd is going to be the main day for UP City Fest down at Lower Harbor. August 3rd, there's going to be an additional 2 p.m. service where a few churches are getting together, and we're all invited to be there as well. August 21st through 24th, we're going to do a youth canoe and campfire adventure along the Two-Hearted River, which is the east end of the UP. We're going to open that up for 10-year-olds and older. So if you've got a 10-year-old or older and they want to go and canoe and camp in a tent, you're welcome to join us. We're still looking for a couple female volunteers to be with the group. I mean, if you're a male and you really want to, that's also awesome. We've got Jonathan and Josh that are committed right now. I'll be there for part of it probably. And if you're like, I'm not a person that loves to canoe, well, good news is we also need to shuttle a couple vehicles from one campsite to the next. So there's some roles that you could play, even if you're like, I don't want to be in a canoe for the next 5 hours with a bunch of teenagers. That's okay. All right? So that's what's coming up next. I'm going to have everybody stand up. We do this from time to time. I'm going to have everybody stand up with me, and we're going to try to read a portion of Matthew 5 all together, okay? So Matthew 5. Now when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on a mountainside and sat down. His disciples came to him, and he began to teach them. He said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you." Glory be to God. Go ahead and sit down. All right, so I got a few things. We're gonna break up the Beatitudes at least into 2 weeks because it's too much for me to do in 1 week, number 1 and 2. I think it's really important stuff, and so we're going to come back to it next week as well. So the Beatitudes, all the blesseds, we're going to pause. This is going to be an interactive Sunday. We can actually make any of them interactive, but what do we know about this sermon? What do you guys know about the Beatitudes? Throw some stuff at me. I would say there's no wrong answers, but I don't know if that's actually true. I'm just kidding. What do you know? So there is no wrong answers. What was that? Big crowd. Okay, big crowd. You can actually answer any one of those questions up there. What stands out as you read it? What things have you noticed provoke questions for you? What was Jesus trying to communicate? Does that apply today? So, Beatitudes. When you think of the Beatitudes, what do you guys think of? How many people, is this the first time you've ever seen this or heard this? Okay, so, all right, sweet. First time. Everybody else, outside of the first time, what are your thoughts? What are the things that you know? What are your first impressions of it? It's an invitation. You said common sense? Okay. Okay. What does it mean to be poor in spirit? Great question. Doesn't always come with ease when you seek his kingdom. He's laying out groundwork for his kingdom. Okay? Okay, so he's explaining the upside down kingdom. Okay? And just as a pause, we've got Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which we would call the Gospels. Another name for the Gospel is good news, or euangelion, which was like, hey, I've got good news about a new kingdom that's coming, right? And so this is Matthew saying, hey, let me tell you about the kingdom. We've looked at the backstory of who Jesus was, his birth narrative, all these other things, right? And now he's saying, okay, I want to highlight to you a message that's going to mark what is the groundwork of the kingdom. What is this kingdom? What is this new kingdom about, right? Okay, other things that you guys think about when you look at the Beatitudes. It's kind of lame. Okay. Listen, I said no wrong answers. I'll take whatever you got. Okay, the message being associated with the prophets. Okay? Do you guys need me to go up here just so you can see some more? What are the things that jump out to you as you look through it? Okay? So countercultural because Rome, it's the opposite of this. And I would actually say that even today, right? Like if you're going to say who's a blessed athlete, like who's the most blessed athlete you know? So like a Michael Jordan, somebody who is blessed because they already have the skills, they've already got the talent, right? Who's a blessed entrepreneur? Somebody who's already rich, right? Who's a blessed whatever in their category? It's somebody that's already made it, right? And so the opposite of, oh, well, the meek. All right, okay. I like that. Nice projection. Who else? What else do you guys notice? Are you guys at a place where you're like, just please keep moving on, stop asking me questions? It's reassuring. Okay. Joke's on you guys, I got another slide of questions. What's the context of this sermon, right? So where is Jesus? We talked about the context last week. Where is he right now? Where? On a hillside in Galilee, right? We had talked a little bit about that. He went up to Galilee. He's on a hillside. Do you guys, anybody remember any of the cities that he was near? Kind of. So there's the triangle. Capernaum is the area. Okay. Who's with Jesus? Do you guys remember who's with Jesus? Okay. His youth group. All right. Who is Jesus talking to? All right. And how are the disciples feeling about the context? So let me just keep asking questions, and I'm going to jump back into some more context quick. So what's the location? Actually, no, hold on. Let me do this. First, we're going to do here. So Matthew 4, when Jesus heard that John had been put in prison and we withdrew to Galilee, right? We talked about last week, if you're going to go to the heart of like the religious center, you're actually going south to Jerusalem. That's where the center of everything, knowledge, purity, that's where the temple, everything is there in the south. Instead, he goes north up into Galilee, the area that's like the crossroad, the trade routes. This is where all of the nations are coming together. You got a whole lot going on up there. The south, the legalistic Christians that were, not Christians, legalistic Jews that were down there would judge the northern ones for their compromise at some level, right? So you've got him going up to that spot, right? He lived in Capernaum, which is by the lake of Zebulun, right? We talked a lot about this last week, so I'm going to jump down to 17. For that time on, Jesus began to preach, repent, for the kingdom of heaven has come near, okay? And we talked a little bit about how that echoed John the Baptist, right? Okay, and then it keeps going. Jesus went through Galilee, so in that region, teaching in their synagogue. So he started off by teaching in the Jewish synagogues, right? Proclaiming the good news of his kingdom, which probably not everybody was super excited about in those synagogues, right? Healing every disease and sickness among the people. News about him spread over Syria, right? And people brought to him all who were ill with various diseases, those suffering severe pain, the demon-possessed, those having seizures, paralyzed, and he healed them. So large crowds from Galilee. Okay, so Galilee's got all of these Gentiles. In fact, it had just mentioned in that prophecy, the verses before, Galilee of the nations or Galilee of the Gentiles. So he's highlighting the Gentiles. He's in the midst of all of these Gentiles where there's a big light. That people had seen a great light. And we had looked at it last week of how it wasn't just Jesus' first thing is, hey, let me be a light to the Jews. His initial kingdom is, let me be a light to the nations in the middle of the Gentiles, right? So that's where we started last week. So large crowds from Galilee, the Decapolis. The Decapolis is 10 cities that are on the eastern side of Galilee. And think about Nineveh times 10, all right? These are like the worst of the worst. We don't associate with those people. They eat bacon over there. They do all these other things. They're pagans. They do all this other stuff. We're not about the Decapolis, okay? So you have Galilee, Gentiles, Decapolis, outcasts, Jerusalem. Wait a second now. Jerusalem, those are the people that are the learned people. Those are the Sadducees and the Pharisees. Those are the ones that like, oh, hey, actually we know the text, right? And the region across the Jordan, which signifies the people that were east of the Jordan, the people, it's almost like the wandering years. Okay, so you got all of that group that come to him right at the start. Now he says, now when Jesus saw the crowds, so the crowds have who? The Decapolis, it's got the Gentiles, it's got the Pharisees, the Sadducees, it's got all of these people that are in there, right? He went up on a mountainside and sat down. Okay? His disciples came to him and he began to teach them. Now the question is them the disciples or them the crowds? And I would say yes, both, right? Now, normally when a rabbi is teaching his disciples, he would teach his disciples, and if there happens to be a crowd, there is or there isn't, but like he's teaching his disciples. Does that make sense? Here, it goes out of its way a couple different times to mention that he's teaching the crowd, and that's significant. So I want to pause for a second, and let's look back at this. And I'm going to do this way, so good luck. What's the location in the U.S. that has the biggest melting pot of people groups? Okay, so let's talk about New York City. Who are the most conservative voices that you can think of in America? Okay, Fox News. Give me some specific names. Rand Paul, who? Okay, Tucker Carlson. Bill O'Reilly. Okay, now give me some of the most liberal voices you can think of. AOC. Who else? Okay, Kamala Harris. Who'd you say? Okay, Destiny. Okay, Bernie Sanders. Okay, now give me some religious leaders or positions. Billy Graham. The Pope. Bill Johnson. Okay, now name some groups of people, either ethnic or groups that identify as something in America. Sorry, what was that? Latinos. Muslims, Jews in New York. Conservatives and liberals. African Americans, whites. Okay? Youpers. The salt of the earth, as we call them. Now, what was it? Don't worry, that comes in 2 weeks. Now add in some poor, some sick people, some demon-possessed people, right? Some curious minds, some smelly people, some fishermen, right? You've got some tourists in the mix, and maybe a couple Satanists, right? You've got that group. Now I want you to think about all of that group. Now put your hand up if you're like, I was slightly nervous just naming the groups. How many people are like, I feel that tension inside of me. Like, what is Pastor Benny asking of me? She's good. She can wander. That's fine. Right? Unless you don't want her to be there. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? Like, you guys felt the tension in the room. And for the most part, we like each other. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're in a church where, like, we have some differing views, but we have a lot of similar backgrounds, right? Like, this is a spot where a lot of you guys have known each other for a long time. There's some level of safety for you here. And still there was something inside you to be like, well, if I say African Americans, I probably should also say whites. Well, if I say this, I should probably, conservatives, I also probably should say liberals, right? Like there's part of you that was like, I should balance both sides really quick. You guys know what I'm saying? Did you guys hear that? Did you guys feel that? Right? Because there's a tension that we have when we start mixing all the melting pot of people. Now, I want you to feel that because instead of me just asking, what did the disciples feel like? I want you to consider you as a youth, you as a teen who's following a rabbi and he's about to teach you in front of the Pope and AOC, Bernie Sanders, and Tucker Carlson. You've got all of the Latinos over here and the blacks over here, whites over here. You've got all of the mix of everything, right? You've got your LGBTQ community over here. You've got all of the people, right? And you're sitting here knowing that all of them are watching you learn from your rabbi. Do you think that they felt some tension? Right? You guys hear what I'm saying? Now, it's in a culture that's flipped, right? It's a culture where you would say, you know what? Well, you've learned all of your Torah, you've passed all of your tests, you've been the top of the top, and now a rabbi has picked you. That is the career path, if you're trying to be a rabbi, of Jerusalem. To being, hey, you know what? For you to even qualify to even start this journey, you have to have the right bloodline. You have to have a family that's connected with both male and female, like parents that are both 100% Jewish, that have been following the Torah, that have taught you the things since childhood. Like you have to be born into the right family, the right culture, the right education, the right socio and economic class. You can't even go into the temple unless you've got those things in Jerusalem. You see what I'm saying? And here you have all of these things that we would say are the structure for, hey, you know what? This is the religious kingdom. This is the kingdom of heaven. If you think, hey, this is what the kingdom of heaven looks like, that would be the religious answer of the day. Now, I say that to pause us for a second because America sometimes isn't that much different in the sense of how many churches would say, no, you have to have this doctrine, you have to have this belief system, you have to get rid of this addiction, you have to get this situation right. Once you look like us, once you smell like us, sound like us, know the right things, now we'll accept you as part of us. You hear what I'm saying? Now, is there a truth? Yeah. Is there stuff that's healthy and unhealthy? Yeah. But this is a drastic, like, culture-setting situation that Jesus is putting them in. He puts these youth group, these teens that are in the spot, and he says, come follow me, and he puts them on the hillside, and then he starts teaching. And he starts teaching the disciples, and he starts teaching those around him. And you've got all of these groups waiting to hear, what is he going to say? You got a new kingdom, right? You got a whole good message. You got good news for me. What's the good news, right? Now let's keep looking. Actually, I want to step back a little bit more. This week, we're going to look at some more of the context of this. So, Capernaum. How many people know much about Capernaum? Great. Means you guys can't fact check me in real time. Put your phones down. I'm just kidding. Okay. Capernaum, or Capernaum. It comes from the Hebrew word kafar, which means village of Nahum. Okay? Nahum means comfort or consoling, especially of one who is sorry. Okay. Does anybody know when Nahum existed, when he was writing? Do you guys know the backstory of Nahum? You guys want me to share it with you really quick? Okay. Sorry, what'd you say? After. So I want you guys to think about Jonah for a second, okay? Someday we're going to talk a lot about Jonah because it has to do a lot with some of Jesus' teaching that comes up. So Jonah, really brief story of Jonah. It's a book about a man named Jonah who is a prophet, who God said, hey, I want you to go to the city called Nineveh, all right? Nineveh was super awesome, follow the Lord. Just kidding. They were the opposite of that, right? 120,000 people. It's like they were worshiping other gods. They were doing other things. They were taking humans that they didn't like, and they would kill them and put them over the outside of the wall as a warning, don't come into our city, we don't like you, right? So you've got a guy named Jonah who probably very legitimately could be afraid to go into Nineveh, and yet he doesn't have any fear of going in to a place like that. Now, most of us would be like, 120,000 people that like want to kill me and my relatives, probably not going to go into the middle and be like, hey, everybody, just so you know, if you don't repent in 40 days, you guys are all gonzos, right? That takes a lot of boldness and a lot of courage. And yet, he knew so much that God was going to shift them that he's like, oh, it's this way? I think I'm going to go this way, right? And he keeps running the opposite direction physically. Hops in a boat with a bunch of fishermen. No, not fishermen, but people that work the water, right? And these sailors get to a place where there's a storm in the water that they're all like, we're going to die. Which, if your job is being on boats in that spot, it's got to be a pretty significant storm, right? Because you're used to storms, you're used to water. It's like your comfort zone. If you do a 9 to 5 all the time that's on the water doesn't scare you. But when water scares you and that's like your job, that's a pretty big deal. There's one person on the boat who's not afraid. Who is it? Jonah, right? Jonah's like, hey, guys, it's me. You want calm seas, just throw me overboard. It's my God, don't worry. He had made his peace that he would rather die than see this Nineveh city of 120,000 turn to God, right? Anyways, long story short, gets thrown overboard, everything goes calm, a bunch of stuff happens, he gets spit out. He's like, fine, I'll go, right? He goes over there, and he walks through the town, probably not with a whole lot of empathy, and he's like, hey, you guys, guess what? 40 days, and you're all going to be dead. You know, God's coming. You should repent. And he goes, sits on a hill, grumpy, and when he watches as the whole city, including the king, all turn, they get in sackcloth and ashes, and they mourn, and they're like, we sinned against God. And God relents. God actually stops and says, actually, I'm not going to take out the city. And at this point, you've got Jonah who's angry about it. He's like, God, I knew you were going to do this. I knew you were a God who was slow to anger. You had a bunch of compassion. You're abounding in love, that you were going to actually forgive them. And he goes down this list that God had with Moses about the defining characteristics of who he is. And he stops at a spot where it says, hey, you're going to bring justice to them. He's like, I basically don't think that you've got the courage, God. You're too weak to actually bring justice on people that deserve it. He's wrestling with this. Now, pause. How many of you guys are at a place where you're like, wait a second, why is it called Jonah and not Nineveh? Like 120,000 people turned. Right? Like we got UP City Fest. What happens if 120,000 people show up at UP City Fest and turn to God? That'd be awesome. We'd be talking all about that event. Right? Not about the one dude who's struggling with the fact that he's on a hillside watching it by himself. He builds a shelter over his head, right? So he's got shade, and then God gives him a plant. And the plant grows up overnight, right over the top of him. Gives him more shade. And he's like, this plant is awesome, right? And then the very next day, God gives him a worm, and the worm comes and eats the plant. What is the purpose of this plant, right? It's not to give him shade. He already had shade. This is a story about Jonah because it's the transformation of one man. We think it's just about the transformation of 120,000. But God gets him to a place where he's like, God, are you kidding me? You gave me this plant, and then you're going to give me this worm that's going to eat the plant? And God's like, are you upset about it? He's like, yeah, I'm angry enough. I should die about it. He's like, you should die about this plant being dead? Are you kidding me? It's just one plant. And God, what he's doing is what he always does. Sometimes we ask him for things, and God, can you show me this? And we sometimes even out of grumbling and complaining, we'll go and we'll do stuff and we'll say stuff. And instead of him audibly saying, hey, Benny, here's the lesson that you need to learn. You need to learn it by this way. Here's the understanding. He will invite me into an experience so that I can understand the bigger truth. And the experience was you have a man, right? Jonah, son of truth, who said, you know what? God, the truth is, I feel like you don't have the courage to have justice on people that deserve justice. Right? And God says, let me give you a plant. How many of you guys know plants that can grow up from no seed overnight, big enough to give a man shade? That doesn't exist in this world. So God says, you want justice. This plant doesn't deserve to be here. So I brought a worm because this wasn't the natural way of doing things. And I took out a plant that doesn't deserve to be here. Justice is that plant doesn't get to be here because it didn't follow any natural progression. You're wrestling with the fact that you want mercy for a plant. How much more should I have mercy on a people? Right? You guys understanding this? He is wrestling with, I want justice. And God says, but my heart is for mercy. And he gives mercy to this people. Okay? Now, what ends up happening is for a generation, these people in Nineveh, they turn towards the Lord and they follow. And a generation later, what you end up having is they turn back to their evil ways, back to sacrificing children, back to all of the wickedness. And God says, actually, it's now time for justice. Because he is a God that both brings justice and mercy, right? And the Jewish understanding is this mixture of the holy name of God holds both of them. But he desires mercy, okay? Now, what does that mean about this? Nahum is the prophet, right? He's the one that is talking about this thing that happens after Jonah. And the comfort that he gives the Israelites is, hey, I want to comfort you. Those that are oppressing us right now, I want you to know that God brought justice to Nineveh, which means he's going to bring justice to those that are oppressing us now. That's the comfort he's giving, is justice is coming. Okay? Capernaum. The first part of it is kapar, which means village. The root word also comes from koper, which describes the price of a human life, the purchasing price and maintenance costs of keeping a person out of slavery. This is not simply a simple sum of money, but rather an economic protective layer of all sorts of hedges and investments. The noun, kipparim, is in fact a plural of the previous, denotes a massive free buying and free keeping of many people at once. This is the process of paying a price to move people from slavery, out of slavery into sonship. Okay? Noun, kaparet, is the technical term for the cover of the Ark of the Covenant, otherwise known as the mercy seat. So you've got this place that has some of these layers of, is it about justice? Is it about mercy? The heart is about mercy, but you've got a people group that are struggling with it. Okay, let me keep going. Okay, the prophet who also authored the book of Nahum, which was also known by a lot of people as the burden of Nineveh, as it describes the fall of the Assyrian capital Nineveh, to the Babylonians in 612 BC. From Nahum 1:1, we learn that the author is from Elkosh. Where that was exactly is unknown, although several locations have been opted. One of those options is the town better known as Capernaum, meaning the village of Nahum. But that remains contested. So he could have come from that city, and part of why they've opted that is because they understand the connection of his message into this location. So the whole name Capernaum translated means village of consolation, or even protected by being sorry, but most commentators translate it as the village of Nahum. The ancients used names differently than we moderns do, and the names of people and towns were often commemorative rather than indicative. Said otherwise, a man named Grace, which equals John, was not necessarily a kind of embodiment of grace, but rather a walking memorial of the grace of God. A man named John was not named after his own grace, but rather the grace of God. Likewise, a town called Town of Nahum was not necessarily the town where Nahum was born, or a town founded or owned by somebody named Nahum. Rather, instead, it's the town of Nahum may very well have been named in commemoration of the city of Nahum, and that, obviously, to literally everybody in the time of Jesus, was Nineveh. Read the short book of Nahum. This is from Abarim Publications. They literally copied and pasted so that I wasn't going to summarize it. So their summary is, with the people there, they would say the village of Nahum, they would know this is a representative of Nineveh, okay? Which is wrestling with, is it justice, is it mercy? You guys with me? Make sense? Okay. Now, I want to pause and reflect a little bit on Matthew 5 again. Now, when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on a mountainside and sat down. His disciples came to him and began to teach them. Okay, so teaching them, both the crowds and the disciples. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure of heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way that they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Okay, I highlighted a bunch of red stuff. Why did I highlight that? What did I highlight? All their pronouns. The they, thems to the you. Do you see that? The first 10 verses about they, them, those, right? And then there's a pivot that happens in verse 11 to you. Okay? Does anybody remember who wrote the book of Matthew? Hey, you nailed it. We're starting off with the easy ones. What was his role? What was his job? Tax collectors, what did he start off with? Super loved or not? I called him a word last week. What was the word? What? A mamzer. Okay, perfect. A mamzer. So a mamzer in Jewish society, to be a mamzer was to be a they, a them, a those people. He shifts the pronoun because he's inviting the out to be in. Okay? Matthew was a mamzer, right? Well, I talked about how when Matthew was writing the gospel of Matthew, he's writing about a kingdom that's coming through the perspective of somebody who was a mamzer who was already excluded. Because a Jew who's taxing Jews, you're like the worst of the worst, right? Like, at least Roman tax collectors, it was their job. But a Jew, for you to, like, do that to your own people, you're a traitor. Like, you're dead to me, traitor. Like, we're done with you. You are the enemy, right? And so for him, he was an outcast of outcasts in so many ways. And he's like, whoo, hey, let me tell you what. You want to know what the gospel is? Let me tell you this story. And ironically, and again, I told you last week, don't read Matthew in a chronological time frame, right? Because if we were to read it chronologically, Matthew isn't called yet, because that comes in later passages. And there's a possibility that he wasn't called yet. Which means if he is here recording this message, he was one of the yous that's in the crowd. Okay? So you got a guy who was already said, you don't qualify. You're unqualified, you're out. You didn't make the cut. Also, we reject you because you first rejected us. You're dead to me, right? And you've got Jesus basically saying, hey, you're not those people anymore. You're already seen, you're heard, you're named, you're honored. Presence of God is with you. Okay? I want you to take a look at this for a second. You've got, if I put Matthew 5 like this, what's the first thing you say? That looks like a chiasm. Yeah, all right, I love it. Should we talk a little bit about chiastic stuff next week? Sounds good. Okay, so with a chiasm, there are literary tools that Jews use. One of those tools that they use is they will take maybe more than one sermon. So like 90% plus of scholars believe that this sermon wasn't verbatim one time, but that this was a very common theme. And that if a Jewish writer is writing to a Jewish audience, what he would do is he would put it in a chiastic form and say, you want to know the heart of the kingdom of this new king, of this new gospel, of this new good news, let me tell you. And you have all the buildup of his backstory. Then you have all of the context of who's sitting there when he says it, right? And then at that point he says, you want to know? Here's the first thing that I'm going to tell you that Jesus says. It's all encapsulated in this. I want to highlight all this, not all this, 6 and 7. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. And blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Now, with all of these, put a pin in that one for a second. When I was in high school, we used to have the 9th grade versus 10th versus 11th versus 12th, and you'd have like these spirit competitions on Spirit Week, right? And you would give an award to the class that had the most school spirit, right? You don't give one to the one that has the most poverty of spirit. The ones that are too good to cheer. The ones that like don't actually, if you think about somebody who's poor in spirit, it's almost like you've got a depraved spirit. You're lacking in spirit. Is that a good thing? No. Right? If we're going to write it in today's culture and through like Christian legalistic minds, we're going to say, blessed are you who were poor in spirit but now have an abundance of spirit. You are the leaders of the class, right? Hey, blessed are those who mourn. Is it great to be mourning? If you're mourning, it means you just had a loss. It doesn't say that you were already comforted. It's not, blessed are you after you've been comforted from mourning. You guys hear that? Blessed are the meek. A lot of times we look at meek and we pretty much connotation as weak. Really, it's strength that's reserved. But those that are meek, all right, we look at them as weak sometimes. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. It's not blessed are those who already have righteousness. You hunger and you thirst for it, right? Blessed are you when you go and you have a feast today out at Deer Lake, right? We look at it and say, oh, I am blessed when I'm putting the hamburger in my mouth and oh, my hunger and pains are gone because Benny went too long and it was a long drive and I'm super hungry. My kids are hungry. Oh, we're blessed that we're finally eating. He says, no, you're blessed when you're hungry. You're blessed when you're thirsty. You're blessed when you don't have it already. You want to take it another step. Hunger and thirst for righteousness. Who hungers and thirsts for righteousness? Somebody who has been wronged, who has been abused, and you want justice. When you want the law to be the righteous thing because you're on the victim side, you want justice. Blessed are the merciful. If I have to give you mercy, it's because you've already wronged me. right? Blessed are you who have been wronged. Blessed are the pure of heart. How many of us look at it and say, I'm disqualified, right? Blessed are the peacemakers, because everybody loves the compromiser who, like, literally, if you're going to be standing in the gap doing peace, both sides are upset that you didn't take their side. Right? Blessed are those who are persecuted. Well, that's fun. Right? This is a wild, wild doctrine that we don't fully understand. It's part of why I'm going to say it again next week. Jesus has got his disciples there with all of the crowd and all of the people, that all of the Judaic understanding was, you need to be a certain seed, a certain bloodline, a certain mom and dad. You have to have a certain education level, a certain socioeconomic level. You have to be fully in. You have to be following the laws, following the rules, following the Christian paradigm. You have to be following all those things. And if you follow all those things, now you'll be blessed. After you do, you will be blessed. You have to earn your way to be blessed by God. And in fact, going all the way back, you're not even allowed into the temple. And the temple signifies what? God's presence. You're not allowed in God's presence unless you've got the right lineage and the right morals and the right self-control and the right everything else. Once you've cleaned yourself, now you're at a spot where now you might be able to enter the presence of God. And Matthew says, you want to know good news about a different kind of kingdom? Blessed are you in the group who've been disqualified. Blessed are you who are shamed. Blessed are you who have been mourning and crying out to God and you haven't seen anything. Blessed are you who are demon-possessed and ill and all these other things and broken. Blessed are the broken. Blessed are the hurting. Blessed are the marginalized. Blessing is everybody that you said was out. I need you to know that the presence of God is with you today. And if he changes it, goes from those people, hey, if you're a those, if you're a they, if you're a them, I need you to know today that you, blessed are you, if your interaction with me changes you in such a way that makes people persecute you because of me, hate you because of me, like kick you out, exclude you, that's okay. Because you are in the presence of God. He is stating that he is one with God. And he is stating that his presence is a gift to all of the ones. And it's in front of all the Sadducees and all the Pharisees, all the teachers of the law. You've got a bunch of them that are present in the middle of all these groups that don't qualify. And Jesus is saying, hey, you're invited, and you're invited, and you're invited, and you're invited. And you all think that you have to be able to make the cut to get into the presence of God, into the temple of God. And I need you to know that I will come to where you are at. You want to know a different kingdom? That's a different kingdom, right? And you've got in the middle, the center, hey, this wrestle in Capernaum, a place where it was like a remnant, a thing of, hey, if we see this, we should think of Jonah and Nineveh. Ironically, later on, he goes and he does a bunch of stuff in the Decapolis, and he feeds 4,000, and he comes back to this place, and as he comes back, the Sadducees are there in Capernaum, and they say, guess what? If you're the Son of God, give us a sign. He says, you wicked and perverse. All you want is signs. You want a sign? I'll give you the sign of Jonah. You're in the city of Nineveh right now. Are you going to care more about justice or mercy? The transition of this, when you look at the chiasm, the first part is all internal. The second part is external. You know what? If I was wronged and I want justice, and as I call out to God for justice, I might just maybe become aware of his presence and his mercy on me, which then gives me an opportunity to give mercy to the one that I wanted justice for. You want to know what the center of the chiasm is? It's that. When we as people demand justice, God invites us to consider mercy. Some reflections. We'll jump into more next week. Jesus blesses the unblessable. In their culture, You don't bless those people unless they become you. Jesus invited the very people who were disqualified from the temple worship to become aware that the presence of God was already with them. Jesus breaks the us versus them barriers and dignifies outcasts by facing them face to face. 4, they shall be called sons of God. He's inviting those that would be slaves into that mass Capernaum, right? Like, even the city has got this echo of the mercy seat where he's like, I'm actually paying the price for all of you to go from slaves to sons. Capernaum, Jonah, Nahum, all wrestle with justice versus mercy. Jesus sits in the tension in this place, highlights he desires mercy. Who is the them or are those people in our minds? Do we share a Father's heart of seeing them blessed with access to his presence now, not only after they've changed or grown or confessed, repented, believed right? Heavenly Father, I thank you for your goodness. I thank you for your faithfulness. God, I thank you for the audacity to come to us and bless us where we're at, that you blessed us with your presence even before we ever knew you, before we ever pursued you. God, like, we acknowledge that you pursued us well before we even understood your pursuit. God, we acknowledge that we couldn't even become aware of how we were already blessed until you opened our eyes. So God, I just ask that you would open our eyes to understand your blessing, not only in our life, but also your presence and how close your kingdom is now to the people that we feel like are on the outs, that are the theys, the thems, the groups that are marginalized. Man, Jesus, you carried the presence of our Heavenly Father, and you've invited us to carry your presence so that the kingdom of heaven can be near to the people that might not ever step into a church, might not ever step into a temple, not ever step into a worship service, but that we can invite them to understand that you have a kingdom where your presence is already with them. And that's the biggest blessing that we could ever have, is your presence that's close. God, I ask that you would help transform us, help us with understanding, give us eyes to see you, give us ears to hear you, give us a heart that is soft towards you, give us the courage to follow you. I ask this in your name. Amen. So what we're going to do from here, we're going to have some open-ended, just prayer time. Those that are here, whoever is last in the building, if you could just pull that wood block out. Those that are going to head out to Deer Lake, you can do that at any time. But I would encourage you, don't be in a rush. Take a minute. Spend some time meeting somebody that's new, praying with them, blessing them, encouraging them. And then we'll meet out at Deer Lake. If you're here and you're like, I don't know how to get to Deer Lake, come talk to me. It's basically head towards Munising, and you'll see us on the right, right before Munising. It's an A-train. Yeah, A-train. Okay, break up, go.